everyone, and welcome to another episode of What's Cookin'. Today we're going to read Tony Baroni Loves Macaroni. It was written by Marilyn Sadler, and the pictures were done by Lucy Cravato. It was published by Blue Apple Books. How many of you love macaroni? I do too. And there's so many different ways to eat macaroni, isn't there? In this book, Tony happens to love macaroni and cheese. Tony Baroni loves macaroni. Tony Baroni, he loved macaroni. He ate it with butter. He ate it with cheese. He ate it for breakfast. He ate it at noon. And then he ate it for dinner with a big serving spoon. Oh my goodness, he loved it so much that he had it for all 3 meals: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Wow. Oh, mamma mia, cried Nonna Sophia. I cooked lasagna. I roasted potatoes. I fried zucchini and sliced ripe tomatoes. No, Nonna, please. Just macaroni and cheese. Nonna made oodles of other good noodles, so she served Tony spinach cannelloni. No, Nonna, please. Just macaroni and cheese. Nonna cooked penne with tomatoes and cheese. Bow ties with broccoli and spaghetti with peas. No, Nonna, please. Just macaroni and cheese. Nonna served rotini and meat tortellini, ravioli with yam, and rigatoni with ham. No, Nonna, please. Just macaroni and cheese. One day, Tony Baroni, who loved macaroni, who ate it with butter, who ate it with cheese, who ate it for breakfast, who ate it at noon, who ate it for dinner with a large serving spoon, knew just what he wanted to eat. Enough macaroni, enough cheese. How about pizza with tomatoes and peas? Oh, so maybe he's finally tired of macaroni and cheese, and now he wants to try something new. Pizza with peas. How does that sound to you, boys and girls? I might try that. I've never had peas on my pizza before, but I'd be willing to give it a try. Now Tony eats pizza for breakfast. He eats pizza at noon. He eats pizza with peas by the light of the moon. I think Tony maybe found a new favorite food. What do you think? At the end of this book, my friends, it has some mealtime activities that I think would be a lot of fun to try. You could help set the table. You can draw your favorite breakfast, draw your favorite lunch, and draw your favorite dinner. And what would you like to eat by the light of the moon? And then over on this page, it shows you all the different kinds of pasta. And this isn't even all of them. There are so many different types. But you have your angel hair and your cavatelli and your ravioli and your linguine and your fettuccine. There's so many different types. I'm going to show you a couple as soon as we get to the kitchen. But I hope you enjoyed this story about Tony Baroni and his macaroni. And maybe you've gotten a little bit hungry. Are you ready to try some macaroni too? Yeah, I think I'm getting hungry. So let's head on to the kitchen and we'll make our own recipe of macaroni and cheese. All right, so here we are back in the kitchen and I am ready to start our macaroni and cheese if you are. Today's recipe, as all of them are, is uploaded to the Spring Into Fun page located on the library's website. So it's there for you to print off along with some table talkers. And the table talkers are just ideas, things to spark conversation with you and your family. You can either talk about it while you cook or while you enjoy the meal. Today's recipe actually did not come from the back of the book as it normally does, but it's actually come from the library cookbook. This cookbook was published here at the Bethel Park Public Library probably about 10 years ago, but it's called A Literary Feast. It is available for checkout, actually. It's in our circulation system. But the recipe that we're making today, the baked macaroni and cheese, is actually our cataloger, Jimmy Huttenhauer's famous recipe, if you will. Jimmy is the one who gets the books ready for you to check out, right? He's the one that gets them in circulation so that you're able to check them out on your library card. So thanks to you, Mr. Jimmy, for this delicious recipe. I've made it plenty of times and I know my family enjoys it. I hope your family does too. Of course, the first step in making our macaroni and cheese is to boil the pasta, right? Now, I actually already have my pasta boiled because I only have one burner to work with. On your stove at home, you can of course be boiling the water while you're making your sauce. That's fine. I just already have mine ready to go. I drizzled it with a little bit of oil so that the pasta wouldn't stick, and I'm just going to go ahead and set that aside. We're going to focus right now on making our roux and our cheesy sauce that's going to go over top. So the first thing you need to do is find 3 tablespoons of butter. Now the recipe calls for 8 ounces of macaroni, and I usually throw in the whole box. And the box is sometimes 12 ounces or 16 ounces. So I adjust accordingly. The recipe calls for 3 tablespoons of butter, but I'm going to put in 4, a half of a stick. And you'll see that I actually already have that in my pot as well. So I'm just going to turn my burner on here so that that can begin to melt. Once the butter is nice and melted, you're going to add in 5 tablespoons of flour. So while we wait for that to melt, let's talk about one of these table talkers. I wonder, boys and girls, you know, Tony didn't like anything besides macaroni and cheese at first, right? Until he decided to try that pizza with peas. But at first, all he would eat was macaroni and cheese for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. And I'm wondering, do you have a favorite food? And if so, what is it? Your absolute favorite food that you just never get sick of? For me, I think I have a couple, but one of my favorite foods is pizza and pasta and tacos. I never tire of tacos. I can eat tacos every week, and I usually do. All right, so our butter is already melting nicely there in the pot. I'm going to go ahead and get my flour ready. I actually already have my flour measured out. It calls for 5 tablespoons. So I'm going to go ahead and measure it out with you so that you can see that that's what I have in here. So you'll want to get your measuring spoons out, and you're looking for the 1 tablespoon. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start adding that in. There's 1. 2, 3, 4. This will be my 5th tablespoon of flour. Again, I'm putting in a little extra pasta, so I put in an extra little butter. I better put in a little extra flour too. I'm just adjusting the recipe. Then you want to go ahead and stir that up till it becomes nice and thick. Mine's already starting to thicken, which means I can go ahead and add in my liquid, which is 2 cups of milk. Can you use skim milk, whole milk, 2%, 1%? Yes, it doesn't matter. I've also used cream in my macaroni and cheese recipe, and it turns out delicious. You can use half and half, which is half cream and half milk, and it also turns out delicious. Today, I'm using 1%, I believe, low-fat milk. It's calling for 2 cups, so in that goes. I'm going to continue to stir. And then the only other thing we're adding in here, boys and girls, is a little dash of salt, a little dash of pepper, and then something that we call Worcestershire sauce, which is a really difficult word to say. It calls for 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. I usually like to add in a little bit more. Again, that's your call. You're the chef. If you want to add a little bit more, a little bit less, you can do that. I'm slowly stirring it and watching it thicken. I'm going to go ahead and add in my dash of salt and my dash of pepper. This is probably so far on all the What's Cooking episodes that we've done, this is probably honestly one of the easiest. It's easy and it's delicious. You can find out once you make this basic macaroni and cheese recipe that you can of course start to add in some add-ins, right? Some ingredients that you might want to throw into your mac and cheese before you bake it. Things like broccoli, things like peas. What else would taste good in your macaroni and cheese recipe? Do you have any ideas? Some people like to put in ground meat and make like a chili mac and cheese. And that tastes yummy too. Add a little protein in there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add this sauce. Again, I'm not even going to measure it out. It calls for 1 teaspoon. I usually add a little bit more, so it's just a dash here and a dash there to your liking. And once this gets nice and thick, we're simply going to pour it over our pasta. Now let's talk pasta here for a moment. All those different types of pasta that were mentioned in the Tony Baroni book. Do you remember? There's so many different types. And you can use any type, just about any type, for macaroni and cheese. The long spaghetti probably wouldn't work as well. But you can use any other type, whatever your favorite type happens to be. Typically, when I make this at home, I use the elbow macaronis. I don't know if you can see that. We can zoom in. Okay. But the one that I already have boiled is actually called farfalle, and they're little bow tie pastas. And we'll zoom in on that so you can see my little bow ties. That's called farfalle. Okay. But again, there's rotini, and there's ziti, and there's rigatoni, and there's ditalini, and that will all work well. It doesn't matter which one you choose. I'm going to go ahead and pour this into a greased pan. Get ready for it to bake. And you can see because I did make this earlier, it did start to stick a little bit, but that's fine because the cheese sauce is going to go right on top and it'll make it moist again. We'll be able to mix it up before we bake it and it'll be just fine. I'm going to go ahead and turn the sauce off. I think it's ready to pour over top. So we're going to do just that. And then we're going to mix it well. Then, what do we need to add? What's the final ingredient in macaroni and cheese? That's right, we need the cheese. It calls for 8 ounces of sharp cheddar. Again, you can use any kind of cheese you like. Sometimes I like to mix my cheese and do half cheddar, half Swiss. You can do Monterey Jack. You could do mozzarella, right? It would all taste yummy. We're going to use the plain sharp cheddar today. I'm going to go ahead and dump the whole bag right in there. Could you shred your cheese? Of course. For time's sake, we're just using the pre-shredded kind of cheese that already comes in the bag, okay? Certainly, it is always fun to grate your own, right? To make a mountain of cheese. I'm just going to demonstrate, and we'll make ours a little extra cheesy. Can never have too much cheese, right? You can, of course, grate your own and make a mound of cheese. But if you don't have a block, or like we are today, a little pressed for time, then you can just use the bagged cheese. Look at all that deliciousness. All right, now it's our job to mix up the cheese really well with the bow ties before we bake it in a 350-degree oven. Make sure it's all blended really nicely before it goes into bake. Now, the other thing that makes this recipe a little special or extra yummy is we put a little coating on top. We're going to toast some breadcrumbs and put a nice breadcrumb coating on top, kind of make like a crust, and then we'll go ahead and bake it. Doesn't take long. You're baking it at 350 for about 25 minutes, and then if you want to put it under the broiler for just the last 5 minutes to make it really toasty, kind of crispy around the edges, a bit soft, ooey and gooey in the middle, then you can do that. You can put it under the broiler. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But that's ready to go. Let's do our breadcrumb topping. I saved the butter from before, right? You're going to do about 1 tablespoon. Put it back in the pot. Let that melt. Got a little piece of paper on there. And then you're going to add some breadcrumbs. You can do Italian seasoned breadcrumbs, plain, or today we're using seasoned panko. And these don't have to brown very long, okay? You'll see that I'm only going to keep them in here just a couple minutes, and then I'm going to pour them over top. While we're waiting for those to brown, I want to ask you guys at home another one of our table talkers, just something to think about. What else can you do with pasta besides eat it? I liked this question when I was typing this one up. That's interesting. I've made crafts, like arts and crafts projects out of pasta. Have you ever done that? Like a noodle necklace, maybe? There's also lots of science experiments that you can do with pasta, such as making spaghetti dance. That's something cool to research, to look up, of course with the grown-ups' help. Do some research on the internet, and there's lots of cool activities to do with pasta, in addition to eating it. Okay, we're going to wait for those to get just a little browner before we add them. Okay, and then we're just going to add it right on top of our macaroni. Sprinkle it all around there. I'm trying to make it even. You, of course, can just dump it in the middle and then use your spoon to spread. That's probably the easiest way to do it, right? And now, my friends, it is ready to bake. Like I said, in under than a half an hour, you'll have a warm and delicious meal to eat with your family. Serve it with a side of salad or whatever else you choose, and mangia. Enjoy. Thanks for joining me on this episode of What's Cookin'. As always, stay safe and healthy, have fun together in the kitchen, and of course, keep on reading. We'll see you next time, everyone. Take care.